Hey folks, everything new under the sun. This is an exciting video, one I've been waiting to put together for you. This is a review of the Midnite Solar Classic 150 Solar Charge Controller. Now I received this from Midnite Solar to do a video review on and unbox and do a couple other videos. I have big plans. I want to do a series of videos on this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this in my vintage Airstream, and I've got a couple of 100-watt panels, so I intend to put this together and do a quick setup. Now, some things first. You should know that I'm no professional, so if I make a mistake in this video, don't hold it to me necessarily. Definitely call Midnite Solar support, and they can help you install, configure this, etc. So I'm not a professional. I'm just a regular guy who's unboxing this and configuring it, setting it up, with my own solar setup. And I have a couple of years experience, a number of years of experience actually with solar, different charge controllers, PWM, MPPT, etc. And so I may not do something 100% correct here, but I'm a DIYer, and I'm looking to get the experience to you as to what this Midnite Classic 150 is all about, how it works. I look forward to doing the videos on it. So here's a look at the manual. I cracked open the box. Now this manual, it has 77 pages in it. It's a fairly thorough manual. It has several black and white photos of configuration, installation. There's schematics like this one of how to plug it in, along with a generator. It has details on pretty much everything that you could want, as well as several different network configurations, which is going to be important later. This is a schema of the menu system, so it's great, so you can navigate the menu on the screen. And then, of course, it comes with the local app as well that you can install on Mac OS or Windows and use that to configure it. So, great manual, very thick, 77 pages. The detail, even on the styrofoam on this thing, I thought was very cool. I was calling this kind of the Apple of charge controllers just because of their presentation, the make, the build quality, etc. Here we look at the temperature sensor for your battery, a nice long cable, so you stick that on the side of your battery and you plug it into the charge controller. Here's the charge controller coming out. It is a weighty unit, and I do a bit of a comparison later on to the Outback FM80, and they're both very heavy, big, massive coils in them. So yeah, it's a heavy unit. It feels good. It feels like a quality unit. Just checking out the buttons there, and the screen is a similar size to the FM80 as well. So this video is generally just going to be the unboxing. Now we're going to do a quick setup of this and look at the local app. So we're just taking a look around the unit right now. You can look at the details even on the back of it that you're never going to see once you have this hanging on a wall. So the attention to detail and just the on their part to put this on the back of it is kind of cool. So you can see that they're going for, I don't know what it is, a retro sort of 50s look to some of the design and the fonts, etc. on it. Now the casing along the right-hand side there that I'm touching there, that is the fan casing. That is to exhaust the hot air from it. Here's a look at it beside my Outback FM80. Now this is a broken FM80 I got just to tear apart and look at. And you can see the size difference. It's a little bit shorter than the FM80. Probably it would be the same size or a little bit taller than the FM60 from Outback. The width is about the same. The fan in it, which is on the far left side of the Midnite Classic there, is a little bit smaller than the fan that you get on the FM80, but it has shrouding, so it's going to direct the airflow. So that's to be tested, and I'll have upcoming videos checking that out. So you can see the general design similarities there, and of course the differences as well. Both are aluminum case units to dissipate the heat. They have similar size screens, and the Classic 150 itself has several more buttons on the front of it, of course, as well. I really like the design of this. They really did a good job, I think, with making it look interesting, not just like an appliance, but actually make it look interesting. And like I say, it's more like an Apple product where they spend some time on the look of it and the the experience of it, if you will. So we're going to the first steps here. We're opening it up. There's 4 screws to open it up. And again, follow your manual. Don't follow what I do. This is just a kind of a show and tell as to what I got and what I did with it when I first got it. So it comes with a couple of stickers, and it comes with some, I guess, vermin grates or insect grates or whatever, screens for the side, as there's punch-out holes on the sides and the bottom to stick your cabling through. On the back of it, then, there's what appears to be a network jack for the screen. And then on the screen itself, there's a little piece of paper in there which tells you kind of steps 1 to 3 to get the unit initially installed. So you pop off the cap there after plugging up the cable. And here you got to plug in the speaker. You take the piece of paper out, and then you got to remove the little battery as well. This is to hold the date and time, I assume, when the battery, when the actual 12-volt battery or whatever your battery bank is disconnected from the unit. So I plug in the speaker there, and then I slide on the cover again. It's very easy access. Now they do provide some silicone grease, I guess, to put around the outsides to prevent dust getting into this unit. You can also get a dust cover for the top part of it, which is otherwise fully open, that part right there on the top. But that's an accessory. That doesn't come out of the box. You can see the array of buttons on it, and they're quite long travel, or for what they are, and they're very usable. So once you do that little bit, that initial setup, what I'm doing here is I'm just packing it all up, and then we're going to take it out to the Airstream. So there you see the side of the box, the styling of the kind of the 50s look, etc. And there's representations there of solar, wind, and hydro, which this Classic 150 does support. So the existing unit that I had was an EP Solar 20 amp MPPT solar charge controller. This is just a Chinese charge controller. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but it's your basic MPPT charge controller. I think they retail for about $200, the 20 amp EP solar units, and they have newer ones, but this is one of the smaller ones that I've been using for years. So it's a workhorse. So the Classic 150 has to live up to quite a longevity of time to match what the EP Solar does, and I expect it will. So here's a look at the inside. I'm going to go ahead and start unscrewing the lockdown nuts so I can get the wires in there. You do need a more slim flathead screwdriver to get in there, so that's what I went and found for myself. And this is the part of the video where I'd say, don't do what I'm doing. I'm sure I'm making mistakes, but this is what I did, and I wanted to experience it from the point of view of regular old Joe purchasing this for his small DIY or even medium-sized off-grid solar project. And it's straightforward. It's all kind of plug and play if you have any experience at all with solar charge controllers. So this screen here, which it's a little hard to see, but there'll be better images of it later, is when you first boot it up, you have the option to select your solar, your wind, or your hydro, and then your battery voltage. And that's what I'm picking there. I've just got a 12-volt battery, a 90 amp hour 12-volt battery in my Airstream, and so I'm setting it to the 12-volt. And then you can set the date and time, and you can do this through the classic, or sorry, the local app as well, which I'll show. So after I got the battery plugged in, I'm plugging in my solar panels, and this is at night, so there's not a lot of voltage coming in, if I recall. Yeah, 21 volts evening time. I've got two 100-watt panels, so they should be putting out about 18 volts each, and so of course you see it there, not much voltage. I go ahead and plug in my battery temperature sensor. Again, plug and play. And you'll notice that I'm not putting it through the grommet holes there. This is just the initial setup to see how it goes, to make sure everything's working as expected. That's an image of me. I've got the wires going through the actual proper holes there, and now they're not protected from dust yet, but that'll come later. Again, this is just an initial test setup. So here I'm going and getting the local software for the Classic 150. go to midnitesolar.com and there's links. Now the first thing you need to do, at least on Mac OS, is that you got to download this Adobe Air application. The software requires this Adobe Air. So initially I go ahead and download the Adobe Air, do the install of it, enter your password, etc., etc. Once that's done, then I can go ahead and click on the local status panel application and get that installed. Again, all very straightforward stuff. Even the hooking it up to the network isn't too bad as long as you have a little bit of experience, with networks. So you don't need a lot of experience, and tech support will be able to help you a lot there. Eventually, I will do a video on plugging this into a wireless bridge so that I can monitor it and also put it on the Midnite Solar Cloud, which is a free service, monitoring service for this unit. And so I'll get it online basically, which is a really cool feature. And that's one of the key features as to why I was interested in looking at this one over the Outback. The Outback is network capable, but you have to buy a module after the fact. This one comes built in, kind of out of the box, with the network option on it. And here I'm plugging the Cat6 network cable into it that you would then plug into the other side of the wireless bridge. In this case, I'm just going straight across to my MacBook. Now on my MacBook, you have a setting. You can do it on Windows as well, but you can share your wireless connection to your Ethernet connection. So I'm going to the sharing screen here. Again, this is not a tutorial. This is just how I did it. You can see in the checkboxes on the bottom right there, it's sharing out to the Ethernet. So when I first connected it, the Classic 150 had a 10.10 address. Came to realize that is the statically set IP. I had to first enable web access, and that's for the cloud-based system, and then enable DHCP mode. I guess you don't need the web access for the DHCP to work, but you can see the IP address that came up, 192.168. And so that's the IP address that was given to it by my MacBook. And pretty much immediately it came up in the local app. And so you click the View button to go ahead and pull this up, and you're faced with this local app, which you've probably seen in other videos. And again, this is one feature where I'm no expert on it. The one thing, the one gotcha that I had was that you have to enter that CL number, which is found on the side of your Classic 150. I do believe the documentation says that, but I was going through it without, as a standard person, DIYer, and not reading the manual, and so I was able to get that going once I figured that out. Otherwise, you can't edit any settings. Here I was humming and hawing about a Classic name. It only has a certain amount of characters, so I couldn't put in the full Airstream name. So I called mine Mick Air ST, Mick Airstream. Here you can, of course, set most of the settings that you can in the menu system on the unit itself. You can set it up for MPPT mode of solar, wind, hydro, etc., and legacy P&O. There's all sorts of options. I mean, this thing is outfitted with options. And then you can select your battery voltage. So by default, when you turn this thing on, I believe it's basically ready to go for 12 volt. It certainly was that way when I plugged it in out of the box. There may be some auto sensing there to give you some basic correct options. And then you have these LED modes, various options. Read through your manual to understand what they do. LED 1 basically gives you the standard, flash green when it's in float mode, etc. Your basic set of LEDs. And then you have you have the ability to synchronize the Classic 150's time to your computer time, or you can just set it manually on the Classic 150 as well. Here you have options of the extra features like the Whiz-Bang Junior Shunt, and you have some amp limits. Again, I'm not going to try and detail exactly what all these do. Midnite Solar has a pile of training videos on each of these. There was my amp hour rating, which is most usable with the Whiz-Bang Junior Shunt, but I set it anyways to 90 amp hours. That's how many amp hours my battery has. And then some options for the logging via the USB, etc. You can set your MPPT mode, so that's the sweep mode. And at the bottom there, then you can see the networking information as well that is currently set on the unit. So you can switch this. Initially, you do need to configure it through the screen on the Classic 150, unless you set up a computer with that 10.10 address and get on it that way. Otherwise, it does come as a static IP. Here you have some other features and options which you can turn on and off. If you hover over it, it does give you a nice little description of what each of them do, so you can just kind of play around and go through that. The gauges around the top are kind of nice. For my small production, they're not going to show very much. Might be nice to have a bit more granular options for what they represent. Here's the data. So there's an option of live data and offline data. The live data would be pulled directly from the unit. So this is the next day. I got some footage just to kind of cap off the video of the system performing with my 200 watts of solar panels. It's winter in Canada. There's not a lot of solar generation, but you can see what it's doing at least. You can see the 29 watts of power coming in, bumping up to, I think it was 39 there for a second. So it's going between kind of 20 and 40 watts. And the input is about 44 volts. And so you can see it actually ramping up 0.7 amps on the left-hand side to 2 amps and 14.7 volts on the battery side of things. So you can see the MPPT in operation, so that's pretty neat. There's a look at the Whiz-Bang Junior screen, which will show you percentage charge, etc. This is the version screen. Shows you it's 12 volts, shows you it's classic 150, shows you some versioning information, and then background to the standard status screen. Over the day, it will record the kilowatt hours that you've accumulated during that day. So I think I got the 0.1, basically with the small array and the small setup I have currently. It's in absorb mode, you can see. And again, you can just see the operation of the MPPT, which I think is really nice. So I kind of go between this one, which is a great illustration of the MPPT in operation, versus the watts coming in. I'll probably leave it on the watts. I like to see the watts overall, but it's nice to see that it's doing what you expect it to do, and that is do the MPPT calculations there, and pumping in more amperage than is actually coming in from the panels by converting that voltage to amperage. So pretty cool stuff. There's a lot of features in this particular unit, and there's a lot of stuff I'm going to cover in the upcoming videos. I want to take a look at the voice commands, the voice options on this. I'd love to take a look at the Whiz-Bang Junior shunt, see how that operates, and do a bit of a tutorial on that. And as well, go through some of the features on this unit, some of the advanced settings, and a bit more of the local apps. So that's what I'd like to take a look at as well. So I just want to give another shout out and thanks to Midnite Solar for providing this for me to do some videos on. Stay tuned for some upcoming parts to this series where I took a look at a bunch of different features, and hopefully a little bit shorter videos than this about the various features, especially as we move into summertime. I'm going to be able to do some performance testing on it and see if we can get the 200 watts out of my panels. And I plan to head towards 1 kilowatt of power, and this thing handles up to 96 amps, the classic 150, so I'm excited to try that. I also want to demonstrate more of the graphing capabilities on screen, like the screen you see there. There's some cool options and items for graphing there. So as always, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you're interested in this and you enjoy this video, and definitely stay tuned for more parts of the series where we get into some of the advanced features of this particular unit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.